Dealing with fear. Now, guys, fear is real and it's something that you cannot run away from when you're trying to do something, especially when you're about to start something new. Fear is going to slowly cripple in and sometimes might just be that one thing that's going to stop you from doing whatever it is that you're going to do. So in this lesson, we're going to explore a little bit about fear and how can you actually overcome fear so that you can get started on your journey and you can be able to overcome fear whenever you are faced with fear as an obstacle. Now, what are you really afraid of? There's a quote that I just want to refer to by Russell that says, "Fear is the main source of superstition and one of the main sources of cruelty. To conquer fear is the beginning of wisdom." I love the last part. To conquer fear is the beginning of wisdom. In order for you to succeed, you're going to really have to conquer fear. Now, let's look a little bit into fear. What is fear? What causes fear? And how can you actually overcome fear? Now, one of the biggest fears that was found through research is the biggest fear that people are faced with is the fear of change. Change can be overwhelming, and if not dealt with, can be one thing that can stop us from going forward in whatever we're trying to endeavor. So, the fear of change is one big thing. There's always changes they're going to be faced with. There's always going to be new technology that's going to be introduced in what you're doing. And if that's going to be something that's going to hold you back from where you're trying to go, that might knock you off. Remember the example I spoke about Nokia and Kodak and Rockaberry? Those were great products at some point in time. But the one thing that knocked them out is as soon as there was change, they did not quickly adapt to change. And as a result, they were not able to make it in this ever-changing world. So the biggest fear is found to be a fear of change. And I think it's something that you always have to think about. How do you overcome change? And how can you embrace the fear of change and turn it into something that is positive and will help you move forward? Some of the other things that that actually bring about fear is the fear of uncertainty, the fear of being uncertain about certain outcomes. As an entrepreneur, that's something that you have to face. You're not sure how things are going to turn out to be, but definitely you have to overcome that. Don't let that fear be the one thing that's going to hold you back from starting in the first place. The second thing is fear of failure. I mean, it's reasonable for you to be afraid of starting something. It's reasonable for you to be afraid of failing in something. No one wants to fail, if you think about it. But you have to quickly overcome that. You have to quickly understand that along the journey, somehow, you're going to fail in what you're doing. And prepare your mind and say, this is what I'm likely to face, and how will I overcome that fear whenever I'm faced with failure. The third one is the fear of being ridiculed. Guys, that's a real one. If you come up with a new idea, especially something that is unconventional, another big word, unconventional means it's something that is not used to, people are not used to. It's something that's not ordinary. There's likely to be fear because people are likely to ridicule that. People are likely to ask you, who do you think you are that you feel you can solve this? Do you think you're the next like Richard Branson? Do you think you're the next Petrus Motsepe? That is one thing. You have to face that. People are going to ridicule you. People are going to feel like what you're trying to do does not make sense because they don't see it the very same way that you see it. You have to learn quickly to overcome that and know that not everyone is going to buy into what you're doing. Your parents are definitely going to buy into it because they're excited about your journey. But everyone else might not necessarily be friendly towards that. The third is the fear of losing control. It's real. Sometimes you're going to have to lose control of whatever you're doing. And if you do not overcome that fear, guys, it's going to hold you back from going wherever you're doing. Because some certain parts in starting a business would mean that you do not have the certain expertise and quality in order for you to be able to do that. And as a result, you are going to need to overcome that. You're going to have to let go at some point in order to give it to the right people who will be able to help you to expand and grow in what you're doing. The fear of being inadequate is real. You know, we all want to be perfect. We all want to have the perfect pitch. We all want to have the perfect shot. I mean, if one thing I tell you, recording this video came up with a lot of perfection, cuts and actions, because we all wanted a perfect cut. But in reality it's not always going to be adequate. You have to be willing to say that, hey, I'm going to fail. It's not going to come out as perfected as how I want it to be. So I need to be prepared to overcome that whenever I'm faced with it. The sixth is the fear of putting the extra work. It's a real one. If you want to start a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, I should put that emphasis on that, is that you're going to need to put in the extra work. You're going to put in the extra hours. You still need to perform in your academics, in your sports, extramural activities that you have, yet at the same time, you still have to nurture this little business that you're trying to start with an idea of growing it into a real business. You have to be prepared to put in the extra work. It's also very important in people that you partner with. If you find yourself wanting to partner with people that you want to help you to grow and start this business, and they're not prepared to put in the extra work in putting this business or this idea to where it needs to be, then maybe they might not necessarily be the right people to get started with. So the fear of putting the extra work is real, and you have to find a way to deal with it before you actually face yourself with the extra work. This you'll find very funny, but the fear of being happy, sometimes we are too hard on ourselves. We feel that we do not deserve this, or we are not adequate enough for us to be able to be celebrated in this area. And as a result of that, we are afraid to actually unleash the best potential that we have in ourselves. So know that at some point in time, you will be celebrated for what you're doing. People would want to actually chat to you about it. And it's important for you to be happy about that. So the fear of being happy is real. Psychologically, it does not make sense. Why wouldn't you want to be happy? But it comes with a lot to think about. The fact that you might be overwhelmed with being celebrated. I mean, think about great entrepreneurs. Like I talk about your Petrus Motsepe. Everyone wants to know him. Everyone wants to have a chat with him, And as a result, you might feel that being celebrated might take away the joy that you have in your heart to being able to be where you are, So the fear of being happy is also another real one. So the one thing that you can actually work on in trying to overcome fear is that you have to identify the fears that you are currently faced with, which is holding you back, and then think about ways in which you can overcome it. Take your fears and talk to maybe your teacher or your mentor from the tech program, or your parents, your brother, sister, anyone that you can trust with your idea, and tell them these are the fears that you're faced with, and maybe they can help you overcome them and help you come up with strategies, which is thinking and ways in which you can overcome that fear whenever you are faced with it. Following this lesson, it's going to be a nice video, which is from a book called Who Moved My Cheese? I would recommend that you find the book and read it. It's a really easy read book with a few pages and very interactive and interesting to read. But we're going to actually play the video now where you can actually see the story about who moved my cheese. The idea behind the whole conversation from this video is, what would you do if you were not afraid? Think about it. What would you do if you were not afraid? How much more can you achieve if you were not afraid? Now the question is, what's holding you back?